Back in the demo, week number 2, and the other thing on the main screen that we can take a look at is these boxes across the top. We show some information. The one that I use the most is open tickets. And the reason I like open tickets is, in my mind, that number should not be very big. So we have 6 open tickets right now. Those are your sales that have not been billed out. So at most, maybe 2, 3, 4 you might see. Somewhere like Yelvington, who was on the phone with the race last weekend, maybe during race hours you might have 20 or 30 open tickets, but by Sunday night after the race is over and everybody's left, you would expect that to be billed out. The nice thing about the open ticket screen is you can see the ticket number, who the customer is, the tail number, and what's on that ticket at a glance. The other thing you'll notice is the column subtotal and total. And then it shows the discounts and everything. So you can open up open tickets and go right from here to go back to an invoice if you want. So if I click on the first one here that was opened a year ago, on 309, that will take me directly to that invoice. Once I'm on that invoice, maybe I now know that it was a Cessna 206. Fees for that will be recalculated. You can make changes to it as needed. Maybe you want to put a sales type with it as appropriate to use that to run discounts or for classification in QuickBooks. And you make those changes and either go ahead and close it out or leave it open. But just one more item you can get to from the dashboard to find out what tickets you have open and which ones need to be closed. Personally, this is the number that I watch in using Asynta because I use it, FBO Director, in 2 businesses. I keep an eye on this because I like this number. A big number there means that's work in process that needs to be billed out. But I don't want to have a lot of those. The checkboxes here, closed, open, and void, don't forget those are there. It's really easy to uncheck open and use that to just filter data that you're taking a look at. Also, searching and looking for customers. One thing I like to do is I can search the last 90 days just by changing the calendar, but before running the search, I usually type in who I'm searching for, then click the magnifying glass, which speeds up the search. So it's still on the last 90 days, but by going ahead and filtering first, it only returned the records I'm looking for, so the system operates a lot faster for you and will find those transactions. If you were wondering what's the green box under notes, what is that used for? It gives you a highlight of the notes, but you can click on the notes just by clicking on that, and you can pop up all the details that are on that particular ticket. So if your location writes in a lot of notes, that's a handy way to see those. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Kelly, for chiming in. This screen is also somewhat duplicated over on the Browse Invoice screen. So Kelly, you guys are coming on board. You're going to make mistakes. Day number 1, most common question would be, how do I void a ticket? To void a ticket, you go to Browse Invoices and then click the red X. You're going to be prompted for your initials. You got one shot to bail out by clicking no, or yes, and you can go ahead and void the ticket. Oh, hey, that's why we're doing this. So, full disclosure, we're running in stage with the latest version of code I uploaded this morning, and I've made a change around payments. So the way payments are operating, and that's why that threw an error. Actually, Levi, you know why that threw an error? It's because we did that funky return. So that would be the issue there, the way we did that $- return.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I'll test for that as a use case that we didn't think of. I need to write a note, hang on. Negative ticket, return. We tried to make the system do something it wasn't designed to do, and now there's another consequence. Looked like it worked. The other thing that you can see here, again, if I go back to the last 90 days, and I type in Acinta, let me save, let me search. Oh, I don't have one doing it. We'll see it in a little bit. This will show your credit card gateways that were used. Over here on the right, you've got the payment link. That's how the transaction was paid for. We're also showing you make and model and tail number on this screen. So you've got an easy way to look up transactions by make and model or even by type of sale. So this shows the same information that's on the main screen, but with some more detail. There's one more icon that will show next to the red X, and that's an ampersand sign. That, if it looks like a little email @ sign, you can click on it and see when and to whom the transaction was emailed. So if I clear this and search, oh, I know why. We refreshed Stage last night. I'm like, where's my data from last week? So we'll send out some transactions, and then I'll show you what those logs look like. So next up today, I was going to touch on taxes. We'll start there. Under Configuration, Accounting, Tax Names. Often you don't need to make changes to your taxes. We support tax on a tax. We support tax by unit or percentage. You can have taxes accrue in multiple account numbers. You can have different names of taxes like FET Avgas and FET Jet. We would do that because they're at different rates. And you just go through the process of setting up a tax. So I can add the Levi tax, and I can put it in at a percentage, say 5%, and then connect that tax to a liability account. And that's really all there is to setting up sales tax. When you're done, just click Add, and you've got the tax in the database. Right here's my new Levi tax that we just set up. Again, like I mentioned last week, there you go. Like I mentioned last week, these screens can be printed. You can export them to Excel or a PDF right from here just by clicking on the various buttons at the top. Once I've set up my taxes, I need to link them, though, to how we're going to apply the tax. We're either going to use a product or an account number to drive our taxes. And you may be wondering, how do I know which one I'm using? So configuration, location, and on sales ticket, there's a checkbox right here, tax method, item or account. My preference is to use account numbers. That way, if I have 10,000 items in my shop, they're all taxable. I could have a revenue account called Shop Part Taxable and drive my taxes that way. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save and save the tax method. Now we'll go assign the Levi tax to one or two product codes, and we'll keep moving along. So accounting, under configuration, accounting, tax product links, add record. I'm going to choose the Levi tax, and I'm going to apply that. Oh, no, it didn't refresh, right? Because it must be part of the cache. So I'm making a note. And you choose either the product code or the account number appropriately to link your taxes. And that's how we go through the process of setting up taxes. Questions on taxes? I think the most common question we deal with is, I have a customer who's non-taxable, so that would be under customers, manage customers. Over here, you can see each customer's tax status. If I want to change Santa Claus to be non-taxable, you just change the option button there, and no taxes apply to him. Then after that, we have locations, and I'll share this. I'm not going to go through the setup because it's generally something we do for people. You may have, we have customers where the base customers are exempt from flowage fees. So in that case, we've set up a new revenue account for jet fuel revenue base, jet fuel revenue transient. Jet fuel revenue transient has one set of taxes assigned to it, and then jet fuel revenue base has another set of taxes assigned to it. So at the high level, I'm sure that makes sense to everybody. But the concern then becomes one of, how does the CSR know how to change the taxes? And we automate that behind the scenes through a table that's available that you can view and look at and play with. But one of those things that I would suggest you talk to us, and it's called the account number swap. And what we do with this is we choose a customer. So 01, I'll choose this customer right here. And then you say, if that customer is buying this product code, jet fuel, swap it for, and we change the revenue account to be a new revenue account. You know, it would be jet fuel revenue base customer. And we swap the revenue account behind the scenes for you for that product on the fly, so the CSR doesn't have to know what to do. Pretty incredibly powerful feature, but something we generally walk through with you. I want to share that so that you know that it's there. So I don't know if you're thinking of an application. If you are, ask questions now or just get in touch with us to learn more about it.
I have a quick question that doesn't necessarily apply to that, but may. What about the government air cards? Because currently we have no way of, you know, we just charge them, then we handwrite the ticket, and then we get the sheet, and they, and how they calculate them not paying taxes never makes sense to me, and I've talked to them, and you don't really get an answer. But is there any way to do that? So when somebody comes in paying with a government air card?
So on that account number swap, I can get with you individually. We have one of our customers set up where when they sell contract fuel, when they sell jet fuel, based on the payment type, we have the ability to swap out the product code and the account number and even add additional products. So app fuel, contract fuel, we, you know, at the particular location, jet fuel is sold by the front desk, an app fuel contract fuel card is used, but what we actually end up writing to the invoice, Kelly, for their accounting system is contract fuel with a different account number and into plane fee as another line item. And it's all automated behind the scenes.
Okay.
So we could do that with the air card. You know, we would be, if we knew the air card was processed, then what we would do is swap out the account number and call that jet fuel air card sales is what I would do. And then we'll get that as closely configured for pricing and taxes as possible.
Okay, because now what I do in the same way with Interplane, we just run the invoice, and then once I get the payment sheet, I go back in, edit the invoice, and make it match what they paid us and move on. But
yeah,
it'd be easier.
Yeah, this would be better to get it as close to correct as we could, and then just have maybe an adjustment entry if we're off by a
Okay.
Good question, though. Good question. All right.
Well, I have a lot of questions.
Well, keep firing away. Well, so I'll move through fuel. I'll touch on fuel in flight school, and then I'll try to wrap up my part, say, by about 10 after, quarter after, so I can take about 15 or 20 minutes of questions, if that works for everybody.
Sure.
So we've tried to organize the menus, keep you in the same part of the program for the same types of functions. So fuel 101. I've already got an account number set up, jet fuel revenue. I've got a product set up, fuel jet A. So I'm done. I can sell fuel on the ticket. But what we really want to do is track where that fuel is going in and out of the tank farm and in and out of the trucks. And we want to track the meter readings, and we want to look for variances and other items. So I know Magda's on the phone, and she will love seeing most of this equipment because it was replicated from Yelvington for a lot of testing. But this is as you can tell, there's a lot of fuel equipment. Let me do this. Hang on. Let me jump out of this database into a different one with less fuel equipment so it makes it more realistic. We'll take a trip to St. Louis. All right, we're a millionaire in St. Louis, and we're going to look at the fuel setup. So I've got a couple of trucks set up, and they actually have a shared common tank farm there, if I recall. So we are missing a tank farm, so deliveries go straight into the truck because they buy directly from the airport. But this shows a nice clean setup. We've got avgas truck 1, avgas truck 2, jet 1, jet 2. To add fuel equipment, the most common thing I get, somebody's been using the software for a year or two, hey, we got a new truck. Well, here we go. Let's add a new truck. So I'm going to add, I'm going to choose the product code first, which will be jet A. The description of the truck is going to be Levi's jet A truck, because he got excited and went out and bought a new truck. And we're going to say that it's a 5,000-gallon refueler. And there you go. We set up a truck. Let's go ahead and set up a avgas. I'm just starting to type, not knowing what I'm going to find. Let's go ahead and set up a QT pod self-serve.
It's a good thing I got my own tax. Those fuel trucks are expensive.
Yeah, there you go. That's how you're making all your money that you got to pay for it. That's slowly. So we set up 2 assets. So now we've got our truck set up. Next, we need to set up meters. So I click on Fuel Management Setup Meters. You can see the meters that are in the system right now. Here's their jet 1, and they have the meter for each. What I'm going to do is go ahead and add the QT self-serve, and I'll call this self-serve. There's no PRIST and there's no automation link ID. I'll talk about that in a moment. And then I'm going to add the jet truck that we set up. So that's going to be Levi's jet truck. We're going to call it LJA front, or LJT, excuse me, front. Now, we may or may not have PRIST. They don't because they're a Phillips location and it's pre-blended. If you're using TCS, Veeder-Root, or Our Fuel Meter Cloud, there's a value that can be entered here. And that would go in the automated fuel link ID. It would most likely look like 10523-1. And then I need to do the rear meter. And choose the same truck again. I'm going to call it Levi jet truck rear. No PRIST. 100523-2 because there's two heads coming from the TCS system. And that's what the automation link is. I actually forgot on my QT pod self-serve. I also need to use the same auto fuel link ID. I forgot to set it up. I noticed it when it was back on the screen. And it would be the pump name that shows coming from QT pod. So that would be on my QT pod file, 100 low lead. And now I've set up my meters. Any questions about setting up meters? Hearing none, I move on. Stock levels. So stock levels, I always explain to people, this is inventory or sticking the tank. So we just got our new truck, the Jet A truck, that's Levi's. The product that's in that is Jet A. It is not commingled fuel. The date and time that I took my stick reading was Friday night at 11 p.m. My initials, and I'm going to say the physical reading in the truck at that point was, I made it a 5,000 gallon refueler, so I'm going to say that it was topped off and we'll call it 5,000 gallons. And I'm not going to worry about cost basis on it, and I'm done. So now I took an inventory reading on that truck. I can do the same for the self-serve. If I can scroll. I'll do that as of yesterday or Monday. Put in my initials. Physical reading, I'll say that I went out and stuck it and it had 1,200 gallons in it, and I saved that. I've now got my physical stock readings in the system. I haven't taken any fuel out or made any deliveries.
I have a quick question.
Fire away.
And I've sort of talked to Ken, and he and I may talk later about this, but I'm going to put in our fuel as a January 1 because so that we have accurate readings. And I was kind of playing with it yesterday, and would I put in my total, because the total fuel and usable are two different numbers. So what would we put in here?
I think you're looking, good question. Because that's because of the slope of the tank and where you can get the bottom out of the truck, right?
Yes.
Your cost basis is going to go back to your total fuel.
Okay. That's what I was leaning, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Kelly, it's really, though, about, usable is your reorder point, right? It's what you're going to see as, when do I need to reorder fuel? If I'm looking at this inventory on hand report, so I'm looking at inventory on hand right now. This is a good one. So somewhere in there they have a couple of bad readings, which need to be cleaned up. But my balance in my self-serve is 1,200, and my Jet A tank, my Levi tank, did not show up. Oh, there it is. This last one is 5,000. So you're just going to let your folks know, hey, if that balance is at 1,500, then go ahead and reorder fuel.
Okay, well, it's always me, so I would know that anyway. But I was just wondering, to get good numbers, which one should I use?
I would go with total.
Okay.
All right, next item then is deliveries. So we've set up the tanks, set up the meters. We got to get fuel. We took a stock reading. Then we need to add a delivery. So I'm going to make a delivery into Levi's jet truck. A little odd at Millionaire because they don't have a tank farm. So I confirmed the product that's going in as my jet truck product. And this screen's getting rewritten here shortly. I'm sure Levi's kind of cringing a little bit at it. You can put in the physical stick readings before and after. You can put in the book value before and after. So we're actually going to overfill that truck because that's the way it's going to work. And then if you got a BOL number, cost basis, anything that came off the BOL you can put in here. But this is the value that's required, so I added 500 gallons. Then you just add it. Next screen is our transfers. Transfers is to allow you to move fuel between assets. So if I wanted to, I could move fuel from the QT pod self-serve over into a avgas truck if I wanted to. Meter, if I have more than one meter, it'll show up. I need to put in the beginning meter reading and put in the ending meter reading. Put in the difference, my initials. I can't type. And then the date and time of the transfer. So I'm going to do that as of yesterday at 2 p.m. And that's how you effect a transfer. So normally it's going to be from jet tank to jet truck 1 or something like that. So if we go back and look at the report, then we'll go sell some fuel, and I'll talk about importing from self-serve. Reports, fuel. Again, we can take a look now at our variance reconciliation. So this is from midnight this morning until midnight this evening. If we specifically look at the Levi jet truck, we started with 5,000 gallons. We got a delivery of 500 gallons, and our book balance is 5,500. Similarly, the last stock reading of the self-serve was yesterday, and it was 1,200 gallons. We transferred out 100, and now there's 1,100 in there. And that'll show you your variance. So it's going to be deliveries plus transfers in, transfers out to calculate a book balance that you can then compare to your stick readings the next day. The next report that's there that I think has value at this point is the inventory on hand. And again, snapshot of what we have for inventory. And the reason we're getting it can't calculate is the inventory values are outside the ranges. So let's go ahead and run an invoice. All I did was click on the left, create invoice. I can get there from the dashboard or from any screen that I'm on. So I'll type in a tail number because that always makes it more interesting, because I have no idea what tail number I'm going to find. Oh, I forgot I'm at Millionaire. No wonder I couldn't find the tail number I was looking for. I'm going to go ahead and, so, hey, this is me right here. This is a bells and whistles. Notice I put in a customer, and it automatically added a fee to the invoice. So we have the ability under, I'm not going to jump out and go do it, but under products, we can automatically add products when you open up tickets. So some of our customers, a Millionaire is adding a security fee. Some locations automatically add a ramp and a landing fee under the idea that you're going to be charged if you don't buy fuel. And it's better to go ahead and add it to the ticket than have the CSR forget to bill for it. They'd rather make a mistake and have and overcharge the customer a ramp fee or landing fee with a fuel purchase than to forget to add it. So food for thought, something that you can do automatically. Yelvington folks, I don't know, you're not using, are you using automatic add or not? I'm watching my chat window to see if anybody chimes in. Levi will let me know.
I don't see anyone chatting at the moment.
So while we wait on that, I'll click on Add Fuel. So Kelly, a lot like FBO Manager was for you guys, you're going to choose you're going to click on the fuel button, pops up, pick a meter. In this case, I'm going to use the front meter. It's the first reading. Oh, Brittany, thanks, Brittany. She said that they're automatically adding for security and safety fees. I was thinking they were using it. If I don't have any meter readings, I need to add something to get the counter started. Once I've got a meter reading, I can put in an ending value. The system will calculate the total fuel, so we're at 260 gallons, and I can add that to the ticket. Everything's on the invoice. Just as an explanation, this fuel ticks. Notice there's a value there. The system created 2 ticket entries in inventory or in the ticket screen, and that's what that represents. I can either leave the invoice open or I can continue to add to it. Millionaire, I know, has something else neat set up, if I can use the word neat, and that's a product kit. So at Millionaire St. Louis, they add newspapers to the aircraft. I believe they go on at $0. So I chose papers and I clicked add kit instead of adding an item. And what this does is it adds the newspapers. Oh, they do have a price on there now. Adds the newspapers to the ticket automatically. It's a package, Wall Street Journal, Post-Dispatch, and USA Today, and puts them all on there, so they can recognize the cost of that. So we can automate adding a number of items to the ticket for you also. I can leave the invoice open, or I can make changes. Maybe we didn't give them a post-dispatch, so I would choose the trash can and delete that row. Invoice is recalculating, and we're back on the ticket. If you needed to backdate an invoice or do something different, Kelly and everyone else, just click on the invoice date at the top, and I can set this invoice for yesterday. I think more importantly, though, I may put it out tomorrow. What's important from a fuel standpoint is this is the date and time of the fuel transaction. So when we look at the variance report, which is what we're talking about, that's the date and time. So I'll go ahead and click open and leave the ticket open. Back at the main screen, reports, fuel reports. Notice my inventory dropped another, whatever it was, 260 gallons came out, more gallons came out. We can run a meter reconciliation report, which will be running at the end of the day. And it shows for each of the meters, each of the transactions that was on there, and the invoice number that they're connected to. If you run this report and there's no invoice number, it means that this entry is not connected to an invoice, so it could be either a broken link or it might be a sump or a transfer that you have. So speaking of that, the screen under fuel, inner recirc sump, one of the next most common questions we get. How do I do sump on a particular tank? Again, you just go choose the particular asset in the meter. You put in the change in the meter readings, however many gallons it is. If you do 0, then all you were doing was recirculation, and that's what I've got it set up as. Put in your initials, but that way we recognize that the meter incremented and we didn't take any fuel out. Questions on fuel so far?
What about defueling?
Just Two ways to handle it. If you're charging the customer for it, just go negative off the fuel ticket when you're running that. Yeah, just run it in reverse with either a negative value. If you don't have it, go into the totalizer, or run the totalizer in reverse. You do have on the main screen also, Kelly and everybody else, you've got a tab called Fuel Tickets, and you can see the tickets that have been run today just by looking here. So these are all the fuelings that have been done. Doesn't mean that those tickets necessarily match up with sales, because fuel's been pumped out, doesn't mean you've actually sold it yet. All right, last item under fuel, automation. Wireless automation and self-serve. So we do support TCS, Veeder-Root, and Fuel Meter Cloud. Self-serve, I know Yelvington's on the phone and uses this every day. I don't know who else will or will not use either FuelMaster or SiteMinder. But SiteMinder, you would choose the file that you're going to import. You know what, hang on one second. I got a file this morning. There it is. That's actually a FuelMaster Plus file, I believe. Oh, I got to choose it again. Sorry. So you grab the file and then click Upload. I think it's a Plus. Oh, look at that. So here's a FuelMaster file ready for import. SiteMinder looks similar. Going to show the date and time of the transaction, the account and the customer name. SiteMinder, we're able to show you the last 4 digits of the credit card. FuelMaster uses some different coding and how things work. The pump name I referred to, the price, what it was sold for, and the tail number. And then you have a choice up here, some new functionality that's been deployed. You can exclude credit card transactions if you want, so you only import the accounts. Or, and this is what we're doing for this particular customer because the FuelMaster didn't support it the way they wanted. So they exclude the credit card transactions, and they use the FBO Director's discounting, which means, you know, Magda, you've been through some of this with me, probably my longest user of SiteMinder. SiteMinder, we override and we use what was billed out on the SiteMinder, so that way the credit cards match up. But what this checkbox does is it ignores the SiteMinder total and would use any discounted values you have in the software. So Magda, don't check these. Leave those unchecked. And then you would import. So that's how we import self-serve. So at this point, any questions on fuel?
I have another self-serve question. And we have, you know, QT Pod, but we haven't upgraded yet. And I don't even know that we'll do it. But the reason I print out the transactions every day, and customer service now enters 1 invoice a day. And the only reason we do it is to account for the flowage fee because it's not calculated at the pump out there at the fuel farm. Would this serve that purpose or not really? We'd still need to enter it.
You'd need to enter a separate, I would just enter an invoice. I would have a product
like we're doing. Okay.
Yeah, I would have a product code called self-serve gallons that just accrues to that flowage fee that you have to pay.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't think there's a way around that. Because if you charge me $100 on the ramp with my Amex fee, you didn't collect it from me.
No.
So what you're doing is you're going back and saying you collected it. But Kelly, I would still probably, and Magda's on the phone, I would use the self-serve import because she's going, and Magda, sorry to talk about you, Magda, you're doing it to import every day from the self-serve that's located remote. You get it in the system, and then this data, Kelly, is in the system, and she exports over to QuickBooks. In fact, I'll log in to Yelvington and Stage, because the nice thing is you can email directly out of here too to a customer. And you've got the tracking of all the tail numbers and everything. So I would do the self-serve import.
Okay.
I'm going to jump over here, and then I'll move into, I'm going to change databases again, and we'll start touching on flight school. What other questions do you guys have while this is loaded? I'll start with, is this helping?
Yes.
Good, good, good. Let me look at, in Magda, I hope you don't mind, I'm looking at your data. I'm going to look at it from, I'm assuming Sunday. I'm going to hit refresh. So without much guessing, Kelly, see how all of these were opened at the same time? 9, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12.
Yes.
If you notice, the tickets were open at the same time. So what that tells me right there is the import was done at 4:07 in the afternoon. And these are the actual transaction times from the QT pod, from SiteMinder. And if I click on one of the, so the SiteMinder, it was valued customer, paid on a credit card for 209 Sierra. So if I call in and said, hey, I was in the middle of the afternoon, I didn't get a receipt, you can come in here and go ahead and reprint this receipt and send it to me. So there's the ticket, and look at that. Spruce Creek, jet fuel, so that was actually a jet fuel SiteMinder transaction. It went to the beach over wing single point meter. It was 26.7 gallons. QT is what the initials are there. This little value down here is a identifier connected back to QT. And then I know that that guy paid with a Visa card, and the last 4 digits were 7182. This transaction is going to export exactly like that to QuickBooks individually. So the other thing that's nice about this, if I go to reports and I go to sales report, and that is not the screen I wanted. How's that for me not knowing how to use the software? Oh, that was the screen I wanted. Sorry, some buttons and interface got moved around and I didn't recognize the screen. So what I want to do now, I'm going to go back to Sunday. Just by clicking on Sunday, apply. And I'm going to run the fuel sales table. One of my more favorite reports. Wow, there's a lot there, isn't there? But let's take a look at it. I've got customer down the left, customer names. I've got what all of my kinds of fuel are. So I've got avgas at Daytona Beach, broken out by quantity and taxes. I've got avgas at Spruce Creek, jet fuel at Daytona Beach, jet fuel at Spruce Creek, and MoGas. So if you start to look at this report, I'm going to go to PDF because it'll be a little bit of view. And we zoom in, because I know you guys can just read that really well. You start to zoom in, and that shows you a breakout of all your sales. So if you've got a customer like Blue Sky that purchases more than one kind of fuel, you'll see it on that report. All right, so that's the advantage, Kelly. I'm a big fan of that report.
Okay.
It's 20 after 2. I'm going to make a turbo trip through flight school, and then we'll touch, although I guess I can ask first, is there anyone on this call that's doing flight school, yay or nay?
We aren't.
No.
Was that a yes, Kelly?
No, we're not.
I didn't think you did. I know Yelvington doesn't. I know that Shelby County does not.
John, I don't think anybody on this line is doing flight
I
school.
don't think so either. I know we had a couple last week, so without any this week, Then why don't I take questions and answers for the next 10 minutes or so and go from there? How's that sound?
Well, I got.
And if there aren't any, I'll keep touching on items if there aren't any. Go ahead. Somebody started to say something.
Yeah, I've got a question. This is Johnny from Shelby County.
Hey, Johnny.
Last week we had issues with our internet here, and I wasn't there for the whole meeting. Question one are these recorded, and can we go back and review them? So if there was anything from last week that I missed that I may need to see that I can look over.
So quick answer on that one. No, last week because I forgot. Yes, today recorded because I remembered.
Okay. I also have just a couple other questions. I know John and I are working trying to figure out our inventory on hand. I entered everything, our physical inventory on January 1st, and going through entering all the fuel sales, the transfers from the fuel farm to trucks, and fuel deliveries. But we're still showing that the inventory on FBO Director and our current on-hand inventory are still not correct. So, you know, John said he's found a few that were duplicates. Quite possibly I did that, or somebody else who was trying to work with the system did it, but could be on our end, could be something else, but we're trying to work that out.
Yep. So you and I exchanged some support tickets. You and I did. I've asked Ken, who's on the phone, to help start digging in to take a look at this. You know, what we want to do is go through each one and start off right here. For instance, avgas truck is negative, jet truck is negative, or jet tank is negative, and the jet truck is negative. So what we'll do first is start with your known deliveries and say, hey, send us a list of the deliveries you know you made. So we'll compare that to the delivery table right here. And then there's a ledger that runs. So for everybody's interest, there's a ledger that runs behind the scenes tracking fuel. We have a new version coming that will actually expose the ledger to you. But as of today and right now, only Levi and I have visibility to the ledger. So what I see at your location, John, is 2 deliveries for jet and 2 deliveries for avgas. And if that part's correct, that's step 1.
Right.
And then once we know that's correct, then we'll start working through the ledger to validate the entries to see where we're out of whack. And the release that's coming out in the morning has additional code in it. So if you, here's what was happening. I can show you in 2 seconds. And what we did was, it took us a little while to understand what was happening. So we made a correction to the software so that when you start a ticket, let me just put in valued customer. I'll walk you through it because we know what the root cause is, so we've already corrected that. Now we just need to resolve your data, and from here going forward, you'll be fine.
Okay.
So if I choose the 100 low lead truck, in the version that you've been running while you were coming up to speed, if I put in, let me do 884, 49 gallons. Okay, so I add that to the ticket. And then I get right here and I'm looking at it and I realize, oh crap, it wasn't 49.1 gallons, it was 19.4 gallons. So you correctly deleted the row and then went back to add it. Well, before today, that little deletion of the row was leaving the entry in our ledger table. and we've cleaned up how that all operates. And that's where that's where the bad transactions are. So we just have to figure out which ones those are and get them eliminated.
Okay, because I remember somebody here put in one, and I know you saw it, that was, I don't know where they got the numbers for, but it was like a negative 49,000 gallons.
Yeah, in the typo that was getting made, and we've added more validity checking, was putting in a totalizer reading by accident in the net gallons position.
Right.
That's what I think that was. So yeah, we can help with that. What other questions? Ken and I were exchanging notes. We're working on pulling your data to try to get ahead of it and help you out as much as possible.
Okay. Well, the page that you're on now, showing all those open invoices, we're trying to figure out, of course, getting used to the software and everything, that these may have been entries that we did by accident or what they were. But some of them are, they're all showing zero balances except for one there.
Yep.
And we're just trying to figure out what those are, for. And should we just delete them?
I would just void them. I mean, if they're not for real transactions, because it looks like there's nothing on the ticket. So I just clicked on the first one, and then maybe from starting back whenever you guys were starting using the software. Here's one right here.
John, I can explain what those are. I think it looks like they were trying to accept a payment, probably to a gateway that wasn't set up yet.
Yeah.
So they're trying to accept a payment to account, to credit card, but they got an error. When they get an error there,
okay,
there was no.
But that's all behind it. Yeah, because all these are a month ago.
Right.
Right.
So they're just set up tickets, so we just need to void those out, right?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and do those.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll get those voided out today. But I know our accounting department had a question about when we receive a payment. Why does it show that it creates two invoice numbers? One, it shows the way the payment was received, as in check, credit card, cash, whatever. But on the same invoice number, it shows account. So
it actually only creates one invoice. Hang on, I need a customer here to.
Well, if you go to our, browse invoices and go to, maybe it was.
Yep.
Yesterday.
Sorry, I went over this at the beginning of the call. Easy explanation for you. Easy explanation. So it's a relational database. One transaction was created. The transaction is the ticket number. Let me see if I can find one here. I got to go back further.
If you go to yesterday's invoices, I received a bunch of payments yesterday, so. Yeah, if you go to
here we go.
page
Here we go.
2.
So we've got invoice 822. It's one ticket, but there's two payment entries on it. So there's a debit and a credit.
Right.
That's what's on it. So it's shown on the invoice as a debit and a credit. There's no items sold, but there's a credit, $200 to the account, and there's a debit of $200 to check. So for everybody
basically,
else,
you need to look at that
too.
Yeah, you need to basically just look at that as a list of payments, not as a list of invoices, because there's two payment records for that one invoice. You see two lines.
Right, and if I go look at the general ledger for yesterday, that's what really explains this well. If I take a look at yesterday, that was at 8 a.m., around 8 a.m. It was like somebody go from 8:15 to 8:30 just to zoom in on that one transaction. 8:15, 8:30. Let me do that. I'm going as fast as I can. Sorry.
That's fine. And I've got one other question after this. And I think that's all today, and I know there'll be more later.
No, fire away. These are good questions. So what you see here is the payment. I've got an accounts receivable. I got a debit. And I've got, I guess it's a different ticket I grabbed. But anyway, I've got debits and credits. I'd have to look at your payment types that are coming in. That's what I see. Oh, this was a different invoice, different date and time range. But anyway, let's just do all of yesterday. I'll just make my life easy. Undeposited funds increased by $5,900, and accounts receivable increased and decreased. So it's the debits and credits. They're tied to one transaction. That's how we display it because it's compatible with accounting systems like QuickBooks and Mass 90 that way.
Okay, but if the customer already had that amount on their account, is it still going to show that? Because that's what I thought we had.
No, that's a different issue. So if you're just closing out the ticket, so if I come in and I just buy jet fuel and you put $500 and it costs me $300 and it goes to my account, it's only going to show the $300 entry as a credit against AR. If I have a payment on file already, it'll just be holding there. So name off one of your customers.
Okay, because that one that you pulled up, the $200 one, was a little different. It was for a hanger, and it had not been entered yet. And I put in a invoice and predated it to the 1st, and then received a payment. But if you go back to the browse invoices and go to the second page,
Yep.
You'll see several for water wings. Now, all those were just on accounts, but they've got 2 entries, for account and check for
Correct.
each one of them.
Correct.
And all those were just received on account. Now, this will tie in.
The payment was received. You made a payment on their account via check. So we had to credit AR and debit undeposited funds.
Okay, well, this, if you click on the magnifying glass and look at the water wing for 730 Mike Charlie, and this kind of ties into my next question, is when I receive a payment, I put in the amount, and at the bottom it's got all the invoices and the fuel sales, where the notes down there is payment 46 applied to yada yada, all those payments that are applied. I hit the green arrows at the bottom of the page. Should I do that or not?
Yes, that clears the open ticket. So if that's what so you received a payment of $1,000, you got a check for $1,000.59, right?
Yeah.
I mean, $1,059.
Yeah, $1,059.36.
So that was a debit to accounts to undeposited funds. It was a credit to AR. That's all that happened.
Okay.
But you applied that payment to these invoices. So they're being marked off as open invoices. They're no longer open, so we're not going to do any aging against them. So it's 100% correct.
So do as I have been doing by clicking all those green arrows at the bottom.
Yeah,
that you want to match up to that amount.
So Kelly, you're new to the software, kind of review for Magda. We've done a ton of work that's coming out in this current version under customers, accounts, balance summary. if I take a look at Water Wings that's set up here, so Johnny, what kind of company is Water Wings?
It's a specialty specialty school. They do multi-engine, single-engine seaplane, multi-engine seaplane, helicopter, tailwheel, and upset training.
And what I'm looking at is they want you tracking each aircraft as its own account versus tracking Water Wings with multiple aircraft, right?
Correct.
All right, just double checking because that's how you're set up.
Yeah.
So that's what it looks like. So as I come down here and I look at the bottom, so where I'm looking, Kelly and everybody else, I'm looking at these values right here. I'm on Water Wings. For whatever reason, and we could try to help figure this out, you're off by 2 cents between the payments received and the open invoices outstanding. This one matches, 292 matches. We're off by $4.50 on this one, and then this one matches. So there's 2 columns. The first column is the balance forwarding. The easiest way to think of that, John, is to think of it as the sum of all of the payments you ever got from this customer plus the sum of all of the charges he ever made. All right? Okay. This one is all of the charges he ever made and an entry for all of the invoices you ever cleared. So if you fail to clear an invoice, it would remain. So if I look at that, what I see is, I'm going to sort it the other way. What I see is on January 1st, that first ticket was voided. So he had a $66 charge, and then payment was applied for $66. 102, 102. So there was a payment that came in that not only applied it got applied to multiple tickets. It was a payment made right here, so it got applied to this ticket, and this ticket. And then a ticket was voided, and we ended up at the last invoice that was run was number 00811, and that was for $50.44, which is what he has outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for doing that is so that we can run an aging report. And that aging report will tell you who owes you money dating back how far. So I'm running that. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it explains it a little bit better.
So here you go right here. American Drilling, in the 0 to 30 days, open invoices, they have $815, and then 30 days prior, they owe you $500. No one is in the 60-day column right now. So that's all about aging. All right. Any other questions? I'm going to wrap up because I will be here tomorrow at 10:15. You can use the same login credentials. Just go to join.me/FBO Director, and I will be there just hanging out. So, Johnny, you're a good example. If you want to get on the phone and ask more questions and one of the accountants, get on the phone with me and ask questions. Same thing on Friday at 11:15. Kelly, you said you have a plethora of questions. I'm all yours. 2 hours the next 2 days. Kind of hanging out.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and get in with you both, if not one of the days.
Hey, that's fine. Yeah, because if no one's here, I'm just hanging out in a dark room, for lack of a better description. But I am trying really hard. Levi and I had a chat. We've got a number of customers coming on board. We're looking back at the last round of customers that came on board, and Levi and I know you start up on Monday morning, you've got a bunch of questions. So I'm trying to head off as many of those questions ahead of time as possible. And you got Levi on the phone, Ken's on the phone. They both have heard everything that came up. And we're all here to help. We want you to be successful. Any other questions? All right. Hey, thank you, everybody. This is pretty impressive.
Thank you.
There were a total of 16 people on the call. So I appreciate you all sharing your afternoon with me. And I will be on at 10:15 tomorrow morning.
All right, we'll see if we'll meet you there.
All righty, perfect. Thanks, John.